Welcome to a farbrengen discussion with myself and Ani Lipitz, and I'm really excited to have you here, but we'll do that again after. I just wanted to share an initial video with you, which is the beginning of our celebrating 10 plus years of Tzohar Seminary, 10 plus being the cooler way to say 11 years. And thank you for joining us. We'll start with the video and then I'll introduce everything. So welcome everyone. My name is Amy Guterson. I'm the founder and artistic director of Tzohar Seminary. And for those of you who saw that video, we are celebrating 10 plus years of Tzohar Seminary, otherwise known as 11. And we are branching out, and our new umbrella title name is Tzohar Arts. And under Tzohar Arts is, of course, 11 years of Tzohar Seminary. Something else which we call Torah Arts, which we've been developing since year 5 of Tzohar Seminary, which I hope will positively affect Jewish education, bringing the arts and creativity into Jewish education. And the third piece, which really relates to this evening, is Tzohar Women. And it's probably the least developed piece that we have, but it is an extension of, over time, mothers, daughters, grandmothers, friends saying, hey, why wasn't the seminary around when I was that age? Or can I come now? And so the extension of that is to create programming and a site where people like you can kind of call the shots of what it should be. We're starting our website under Tzohar Arts in the next couple of days. You'll see a website in the chat, but you'll also see an email that says Tzohar Women. That one's active already. The website is not yet. You can go to tzoharseminary.com, but Tzohar Arts is getting up there in the next couple of days. So I just want to introduce you to Tzohar in general. For those, there may be many of you who know of Tzohar Seminary and many who do not. The word Tzohar, basically, it comes from Parshat Noach, where God says to Noah, he commands him, build an ark, but also put in a Tzohar. And the Tzohar is nowhere else in the Torah. It's nowhere else in modern Hebrew. And Rashi comes to say that it means a window or a skylight to let the light in, or it's a precious stone that shone its light out. And that is basically the essence of Tzohar. We're letting the light of creativity, of Torah and Chassidus into the girls' lives, kind of opening that space up, and they're shining their precious jewel, their light out to the world. It also relates to, just like Mitzrayim, the word tsar is narrow. And this relates to our conversation tonight very, very much. The word tsar means narrow, or tsarot are troubles or worries. And that comes from a narrow point of view or a narrow view of the world. But when we let in a hey, we let God in. Hey represents Hashem, and it expands the word. It opens it up. Also, the sound is like a breath. We're letting Hashem into our lives, and then we can shine our light out. It becomes from something narrow, something where we don't see possibility, to a shining light where there's a flow. And tonight we're going to talk about that flow. We are going to open up our thinking. And I want to introduce our wonderful guest tonight. Chana Ani Lipitz is a teacher, speaker, mashpia, and writer. Her passion and purpose is helping others deeply understand, connect to, and live Chassidus. She runs Geula Vision. Go there if you haven't been there yet. Is a principal of Devorah High School and Women's Base Medrash, and is the author of Tanya Companion. Her other interests, just in case you needed other interests, include equestrian psychoneuroimmunology, a very fancy way of saying the mind-body connection, graphic design, and filmmaking. There you go, Crystal, filmmaking.
Yep.
Ani lives in Pomona, New York with her husband and 4 children, Kanainahara, and her horse, Cinder. It was very cute, I might add. Welcome,
Yes.
Ani, and thank you
so
for
much.
joining me tonight to discuss Geula and creativity.
My pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. This is something that we've been talking about doing for a long time, the Geula Vision and Tzohar collab. And I mean, you and I have been in touch for so long. And Amy and I, we got in touch initially through a healing journey.
Yep.
We got in touch through a healing journey. Both of us are actually practitioners of an incredible healing modality called emotion code. Very powerful and Geuladic modality, and we'll talk more about it, what Geula is, what makes this Geuladic as we go. But it was an initial...
To be more honest and more forthright, Ani was my emotion code practitioner. And I kind of knew that I wanted to do healing, but I needed it with the light of Hasidus. And that's why I wanted to do this healing with Ani. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I wanted to share, and I'm perfectly comfortable doing that. And as we worked together on me, I knew that I wanted to do this, and she knew that I should do this. So she encouraged me. So talk about, a journey together. So we really shared that.
Totally. And then, well, and I've had the privilege and blessing of then having Amy work on me and create, from that Tzohar, create massive openings and expansion for me as well. So Baruch Hashem, it's truly, we're gonna talk about the idea of Geula or redemption is really about this moving from a hierarchical linear model of reality to this beautiful circle reality where each of us, we're all helping each other and we bring our gifts to each other. And so it's this beautiful full circle of I was able to help you and then you were able to help me, and it just continues creating together, healing together. And
amen. And that's what women are so good at and can teach the rest of the world. So
yeah, because that circle, because if we think about it, that idea of the circle is about holding space. It's making space. The circle is so much space. So, and that's really what, women are so good at doing that for each other when we're in ourselves, the ability to be in that circle together of holding space for one another. And we know that's where the healing and the incredibleness happens.
There's also, in a circle, there's no hierarchy. First of all, we play theater games. I'm a theater teacher, improv teacher, and everything starts with a circle where you're in the circle and you're all equal in the circle, but you're all individuals in the circle and you're all equidistant. I mean, if we talk about a spiritual circle, and Sarah Judith Schneider writes about this circle of women. It's Miriam's dance, we all have our own place. We're all equidistant from Hashem, but we all have our role. And women know this. I think that that's key, that we start this reality happening.
100%. 100%. And that's why, that's why it's been said in the Torah all throughout history, and the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who's really the one ushering in the Geula consciousness for all of us to plug into, is always talks about the fact that it's the Nashim Tzidkanios, it's the righteous women, the women who are plugging in and plugging each other in, that are the ones who manifest the Geula reality, the redeemed God conscious reality that we are really actively and consciously now ushering in.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
So maybe we can start off this discussion tonight with some definitions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll do some definitions of creativity because supposedly that's my thing. And then Ani will do the definition of Geula. And so let me start with creativity. So when you think of the word creativity, you might think of a creative person. You say, oh, that person's so creative. They know how to decorate a room. They know how to create a party or create an event. And that's used in a daily way. You might take that a little farther with somebody who is an artist. You might say, oh, wow, they're creative, but they're an artist, and they really develop their talents along with their creativity. And so those are the two things you may think of first when you think of creativity. But I remember having this essay somewhere in high school, and it kind of being a little mind-blowing to me. The topic was necessity is the mother of invention, which is like this very heady kind of thing. But I do see that as a doorway to creativity. If you have a problem, if you have a need. I show the girls in our class every year. I show them these in the Philippines. There are these they have no lighting in a lot of these villages, and they make out of old bottles and some water. They put in the ceilings, and that they are even dark during the day otherwise, and they have the sun shining in through that, and it lights up the whole space. So they're very cool videos to show that. But necessity or a problem creates the need to think out of the box in order to solve the problems. And obviously the everyday needs, but even more so, how do we educate? How do we look at things? How do we come at things in a business way? And technology was born out of all of that as well. And then the last and final thing, and probably what we're going to talk about the most today, is yourself. How do you create yourself? How do you create your life, the life that you are supposed to have, the you that you're supposed to come and become? And since working and talking with Ani, I use this term all of the time. I don't even use it as an outside term. I talk about with my clients and with my students, with everyone, about becoming your Geuladic self. What is your next best self? What are you moving into? What do you release from your life? What do you give over, through healing, through energy work, through awareness, toward moving toward who your soul is fully meant to be? And so that is the biggest connection, I think, in terms of creativity and Geula, but all will come into play in this conversation, I believe.
Yeah. Yep. It's all gonna flow. So what is Geula? So we had a little teaser, little spoiler before. We mentioned the English translation of Geula is redemption. And I'm very much into words and very much into finding the correct, most precise, most energetically aligned words to describe these different terms that we hear in Hasidus, in Jewish mysticism, because one of the biggest challenges of our generation right now, or one of the biggest opportunities for creation and renewal, is that a lot of the terminology that we use, the English translations that we use for these words are like at best functionally irrelevant. We don't know how to use them or connect to them, and at worst a turn off, something that makes it seem either unappealing or unrelatable. So I'm still working on trying to figure out, like redemption is a word that I feel a lot of internal buzz with. It does resonate and people are talking about it. This is a word that is talked about, I think, a lot in the greater world. So for now, we'll stick with the term redemption, but if anything better comes up, if any upgrades come, if any new creative download happens, I'll share it with all of you. But the Hebrew word Geula, what is Geula? Geula is God's deepest, most intimate, most passionate desire for his world. Geula is the world, is each one of us in a state of complete and total intimate awareness of God in every detail of our human life. And the biggest thing to understand about Geula, about redemption, is that it's not something that takes us out of ourselves. A lot of people have this idea of, of Geula or the redeemed world or a messianic state of the world as dissociated, floating around on a, just basking in white light forever. I never have to do anything or think about anything again. But when we learn the teachings of Hasidus, of Jewish mysticism, and particularly of the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the message is totally different. What we're actually learning, what God himself is actually disclosing to us, is my deepest, most precious, pleasurable, wildly passionate vision is you empowered, you living in a way of deep co-creation with me. We're told over and over again that we are created to ultimately be co-creators. And the process of history, the process of human history, has been us growing up ultimately in our relationship to God, where we start out maybe in the servant master relationship, and then we can evolve and grow into relating to God, to the infinite creator, in a parent-child way. But the Kabbalah tells us, God, Hashem, discloses to us that I ultimately created you to be my intimate partner. I ultimately created you to share one crown with you. I ultimately created you to be my love, to be my lover, to be my co-creator of reality. And that co-creation, that co-creative process, that crown is fueled by a vision of unbelievable joy and pleasure, and the ability to sense possibilities beyond ourselves. We call that in Hebrew emunah, we call that faith. But what emunah actually is actually a function of the soul. It's part of the soul's anatomy. And what the power of emunah actually does is it almost functions like a little antenna. It sits up here on top of our head, the same way, you know, an animal, lahagdil, to separate, antennas sit on top of the head, and it senses vibrations and things that it can't currently grasp. And so our power of faith is actually the power to start to sense new realities and then draw them down first into the mind, then into the heart, and into full manifestation. So the idea of a redeemed world is actually at its essence a world where we are all constantly living just a beautiful, healed, whole, empowered human life with the consciousness that all of this is God expressing himself.
That's a pretty good creative expression.
Yeah, it
One
is.
to mirror in our own lives.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah. By the way, just to let you know, I mean, Ani and I will keep talking here, but more toward the end, we'll leave like 15 minutes for questions and answers. I'm sure there are some up there as well. You can start to write them now or leave them more toward the end because we're not going to check in till then. Ani, how would you connect what you just said directly to a human being's creativity?
I think the fact that our ultimate identity, like who God ultimately created us to be, created us, or emanated us to be, because truly we are a manifestation of him, is to be a co-creator. So it seems that the essence of who we are and who we're meant to be is actually creativity, is actually a flow of divine creativity. And a concept that is, you know, that shows up throughout Torah, but again, especially something that the Lubavitcher Rebbe focuses on in the teachings that we have about Geula, how to do Geula, how to plug into this process, this consciousness, is this concept called Hischadshus, which means renewal, complete and total renewal. The ability to become new, to create something totally new, to create a chiddush, which in Hebrew means like a novelty. So it seems that at our essence, the essence of who we are and where we feel our deepest fulfillment and connection to God is actually when we're in a creative flow space.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And we're mirroring God's process. So
Yeah.
I'd love to share with you what we discussed last night about the creative process and the creative and the growth process, you know, which mirror each other. And I had a wonderful acting teacher way back when who basically boiled it down to 4 expressions. So this is for both the creative or artistic process and for the personal growth process. Basically, we begin with uh-oh. So what is an uh-oh? Uh-oh means I'm aware of something, something's off, something's wrong. Or if I'm going to be creating something, uh-oh, I have a deadline. Uh-oh, I have to do this thing. For my students, it's I have to create something for end of semester. That's an uh-oh. Or there might be further uh-ohs of what will I do? You know, am I good enough in one of these arts to share something? A personal uh-oh might be I'm lacking something in life. I'm finding, oh, I'm not particularly nice to people. I see other people being nicer. Or, uh-oh, I don't know how to mother in a certain way that other people seem to. Whatever that uh-oh is, we have uh-ohs every day of different kinds. But then it moves on past the uh-oh. When we have the initial awareness, then it becomes, oh no. I tell my students, this is all the notes you need to take in this class all year. Uh-oh, oh no, we'll go through it. So, oh no is more of the realization I have the uh-oh, but oh no, I don't know how to move through this. I don't have the tools, or I want to do something for the end of the year and I have sort of a notion of what it is, but oh no, I kind of want to make a film, but I haven't been learning with Crystal, who's womaning this tonight, but I don't have enough tools yet to make that film. Or, oh no, I don't have enough tools for mothering because I haven't done this before. Or, oh no, I haven't had enough experience being kind to people in a certain way. And then we have an aha. Aha, oh, I see somebody else doing it. Aha, that's how you learn to use this technical tool to make a film or use the camera. And those oh no's and the ahas flow back and forth for a while. So we have uh-oh, the first realization, the oh no, I don't have the tools, the aha, oh, this is this tool, or this is, oh, this is a direction I think I want to go with it. But then, oh no, I don't have that tool, or oh no, I'm not sure where I'm gonna, and that goes back and forth, that oh no and that aha. And until we reach the completion of either that project, that film that we make, that song that we write, that painting that we paint that expresses the Hasidus that we're trying to express, or we're able to model that behavior, the behavior of kindness, the behavior of mothering that we so desire, et cetera, et cetera. And that expression of the behavior or that project being finished is a ta-da. So we go, uh-oh, oh no, aha, and those go back and forth, ta-da. So of course the uh-oh and the ta-da are shorter lived, you know, for good, for bad, but then we start the process all over again. And that's our growth process. That's our reality. You know, we're not making something from nothing like God does. We're taking God's material and making a world of godliness. And that's how we grow. And I think that these terms are wonderful for expressions. Maybe somebody wants to write it while you remember it into the chat so people can remember it. It's uh-oh, oh no, aha, ta-da. And it's helpful. Sometimes my students go, wait, what was that again? What am I up to? So they like to track themselves, certainly in their creative artistic process. Yeah. Uh-oh is the realization. Yes. So we'll look back in there. Thank you, Toby, for writing it in there. So Ani, anything on that you would like to, you know, this is just a dance that we're doing, Ani and I here.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is really, I mean, this is really, like you said, also the journey of personal growth and the journey of this growth and evolution. This is what we've been doing, you know, throughout history, throughout human history. To bring it back to the explicit Geula piece, one of the ways that we can really understand Geula is also to understand its seeming opposite, which is gullus or exile. And a lot of people initially understand the idea of exile is the Jewish people being exiled from the land of Israel. But gullus is actually a cosmic gullus. The exile was actually a cosmic exile, and it happened when Adam and Eve initially ate from that tree in the Garden of Eden. Because what happened then, when I won't go into all the technical details here. If you visit my website, I have tons of different shirim where I bring the technical according to Hasidus, tons of different classes where I explain the technical details of what happened. But functionally, essentially what happened is that when they ingested the fruit, they collapsed down into a consciousness of fragmentation and constriction. The very first thing that the very first state that the Torah talks about Adam and Eve experiencing after they went into this fragmented consciousness is fear and shame. So the fear and the shame of oneself and of one's state, of one's, you know, proverbial existential nakedness, so to speak. Am I good? Am I bad? What am I? What am I doing here? I'm now outside my experience. I'm experiencing myself as uncovered, as not enough, whatever it is. That is the essence of the exile experience. I'm no longer in this unity consciousness where I understand that even though I am a unique and differentiated expression of God, I am an expression of God, like everybody else, like everything else, like every other detail of this world. And when we had the revelation of Hasidus, which started around like 300 years ago, maybe over 300 years ago, that was the beginning of that unity consciousness beginning to shine en masse back into the world again, of us being able to, as we learned and integrated and worked on ourselves and worked on the world around us in the light of the teachings of Hasidus, and meditated and processed and changed ourselves through it, because it's not just teachings, it's energy. It's a download from God's essence. And the more we ingest it and process it and work with it, the more we move back into that consciousness, that oneness experience. And so understanding that it's in that fragmented, narrow space of gullus, of cosmic exile, that we learn it wasn't an accident that they ate, that we actually are ultimately invited into ultimate creativity, because that was kind of the ultimate oh my gosh, in these gullus places, when we feel the exile space in our own lives, when gullus things, when dark things, when fragmented things show up in our lives, when we're in those narrow straits, Hasidus teaches us that's an invitation to get creative. That's an invitation to move into Emunah. And somebody just asked how Emunah fits into this again. That's an invitation to move into an Emunah. And that doesn't, on one level, that can mean just a sense of belief that things will get better. But on another level, it's the beginning of the creative process, because again, Emunah is the soul's ability to sense higher potentials and realities that it has not yet grasped, either intellectually or emotionally. So when we find ourselves in the constricted gullus space within our own lives, where within our experience, it's an invitation from God himself to get creative and work with me. He's telling us, come work with me, be with me here. How can we expand this space together to take it from the Tzohar to the Tzohar?
Right. Wonderful. I'm thinking that this might be an opportunity to talk about a little bit about the energy work that we both do, because I think it's really uh-ohs when there's a real uh-oh that gets people toward healing, even people who are weirded out by it, say, why not, like, what have I got to lose? And then as they start, there are big oh no's, but there's also very quickly big ahas.
Yes.
And let's talk about that a little bit. And we're talking with emotion code. There are other kinds of somatic therapies, but in emotion code, we're talking about releasing trapped negative emotions, things that are making us stuck or limited and narrow in our lives, where we see ourselves, partly the way we saw ourselves when we're 5. We're moving through our lives with that stuckness of way back when. And so we're working toward releasing things, at finding and releasing things that are affecting you now, and ways of freeing you now so that you can become your most Geuladic self. So there is this whole process for sure when we do emotion code. When we say we have positive emotions, the more the merrier, the more we're like living in Hashem's light, the more joy, the more happiness, the more contentment, the more love, the more kindness. Like, that's Geuladic already. The more you have in your life, the merrier. Nobody's trying to release that. That's all good. And even negative emotions that kind of move through you, like a sadness moves through you, but you can kind of let it go. Like, that's part. Somebody raised their hand with your name. It's so weird. We'll get to.
We are all one. I am one with everybody.
We're all on Lipitz tonight, it looks like.
Well, Ani actually just means I. So
there you go.
We're all the supernal I tonight.
Yeah, so we'll get to the questions soon. There's 2 participants raising their hand, but we're going to save it for the end. It's too hard to address it right now, but we will. We're going to leave a chunk of time. So basically, even a negative emotion that kind of moves through us, like a sadness, it's when we trap it and hold on to it and say, I need to be defensive. I need to be resentful. I need to be worried. Like we always say, we're worried about our kids, and we hold on to it. Like, I'm holding on to this pen. This is my worry. I can't let go of it. But as soon as we're able, and it's not so easy, we're able to hand that over to Hashem and say, you hold it, then we're out of the way. And that's in essence the work that we're doing. I mean, obviously it doesn't work like that, but that's the essence of it. You want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes, a lot of the times, it's stuff that we don't realize we held on to. Many of us, myself included, our defense mechanism of choice is dissociation. So here I am out here having my experience of life, but here's my actual being getting filled up with all of these experiences, and I'm not present because I don't have the tools. There's too much pain. I don't even realize I'm dissociated to actually be with my experiences and process them. And that's when we end up getting this emotional energy trapped, is when we're not able to be present with them. We're not able to process them, and it gets stuck. And our psyche is very multidimensional. And a big piece of the Geula process is embracing our multidimensionality. There are multiple dimensions and levels of our soul, and even just our human psyche. We can have pieces of it that are stuck developmentally in different portions of our life where we weren't able to finish developmental tasks, where we experienced trauma that we weren't able to resolve. And even from past lives in this generation, we are carrying and finishing a lot of things from past lives as well. And this idea of our soul kind of being, our soul, which is our psyche, which is the core of our inner experience, being scattered in different directions, is called pizul hanefesh, the scattering of the psyche. And it's a very real thing. And so the deeper we go, the more we find these exiled pieces of ourselves, these pieces of ourselves stuck in gullus, and we're able to find them and take them and release the density, the gullus frequencies from them, so they can be reintegrated back into the whole expansive and ever evolving you, the Geulidic you, as Amy says.
Yeah, it's well, you said that first. I just take it from you. But it is Geulidic. It feels unbelievable, and it feels like it kind of became more popular and just becoming more as we're moving toward Geula. And I'm really honored. I feel honored to be a part of working with it, because once you release where you're stuck, and we have this with students, they're young women, they're 18 years old, but they're coming for the first time, away from home. And we have them writing something called morning pages, which is honestly a great tool. I could talk about it another time, but they're just spilling out themselves onto the page, first complaining like, oh, I miss home, I miss this is weird. And then they get to the other side of that, of, hearing their own voice, seeing who they are. And also when we do this kind of work and we unstick ourselves, we release ourselves, we are released from this and we give it over to God. First of all, you realize that you're really living with God in your everyday moment, in your breath, and you're giving over those emotions to God and moving on, so that you're not just blaming, getting stuck, holing up in your room or hiding in a corner, but you're able to, and of course, some things are way harder than others, of course, but you're able to, perhaps with help, open up and give it over and move through it. And it helps direct you to who you really are. And then you're opened up to help create who you are and create your life and create what you're meant to bring to the world, which brings us also to manifesting things in the world.
Right.
For me, it was definitely at some point I was kept from, because I became an actor, went away from that, and then left the acting to become from again. So I felt like this narrow space. And in order to expand, we're trying to replace it with a million things. So Tzohar was born partly from that constriction. And then there's an expansion. Because that frustration led me to do something else. And for Ani, right now, she's manifesting what she saw was a limit. She's manifesting, and she's manifested many things. But Baruch Hashem, but right now she's manifesting this high school for girls with can you speak about it and what inspired you to do that?
Yeah, sure. Without wanting to harp too much on the negative, but I was in as a teacher in, a regular high school, and seeing destructive effects left and right all around me, and nobody's doing it on purpose, but it's happening. And it was so hard. It was really hard for me to see how the girls, in general, they weren't connecting. They weren't getting like a whole sense of reality. Their experience was very fragmented. They were getting turned off to Torah, to Chassidus, to God, to their whole experience, and for their mental and emotional health, seeing how the focus, and I'm talking in like from high schools, like very from high schools, the focus on academic achievement was keeping these girls, as they're going through a very important stage of neurological development, constantly in fight or flight, just from the academic pressure alone, and trying to manage a billion different subjects. And you know, I'm looking at what's happening, and I'm like, we're ruining the mental, emotional, and spiritual health of the future, the Akarasa bias of the Jewish people. And it was so painful for me, you know, to see, and to, you know, that it's happening on accident. Nobody's doing it on purpose, but there's a blindness, and there's you know, maybe a block or whatever it is to actually thinking outside the box and saying, maybe there's a whole different way to do this. Maybe it's not band-aids, but like a whole new way of doing things that could be, you know, necessary. And so the whole idea of the Heichal Devorah model, history, and the best of what we can offer them now, we're working with how the feminine psyche is set up. And our curriculum is very much based on living. Everything we learn, we live. Everything we learn, we live. Helping the girls to become comfortable with their body, to get to know with their bodies, to get to know themselves, to become embodied. I'll tell you a little bit about, right now, this year we're part-time, but going into the fall, we're going to be a full-time program.
I hope you're just freezing on my screen. But
and talk together, the staff and the girls, because the way that the staff is we see ourselves as the older sisters and the aunts of these girls, and we're coming together as Jews to learn how to live, to learn.
Yeah, Ani, you're freezing up a bit, just to be aware. I'm not sure what you can.
Okay, can you hear me?
The name of the school is Exile Devorah.
Yeah, it's in. So it's yeah, and the school is in it's in Pomona, New York, and we're going to keep it small. But my goal is not to expand the program, because then it will lose its integrity, but to help other women set up things like this. And I'll tell you in a few minutes, you know, why, how all of this is. So we start out with a breakfast farbrengen, schmoozing together. The staff is really all about building these relationships, the big sister, the aunt, sharing God's wisdom together and helping to guide, you know, these girls on their journeys. And then we have davening and chitas. For those who know what it is, it's the daily portion of Chumash, Tanya, and Tehillim. Then we have daily movement classes. And then Chumash, Parsha, and Chumash and Parsha are actually the same subject. Everything we learn is based on where we are in the cycle of time, because as women, we're very energetically, intuitively, naturally tied in with the cycle of time. So to help us be oriented into reality, because that's what chinuch is, that's what education is not about giving over facts and dry information. It's about building up the psyche and the orientation to reality. And then we have a class, luach, on where we are in the year, and halacha lab, learning Jewish law, very often based on what holidays are coming up and other topics that are relevant to, again, where we are in time. And we call it halacha lab because we're not just learning the halachas, but then we're doing it. You know, we're in the kitchen cooking for kashrus, for when we're learning the laws of Shabbos, for healthcare on Shabbos, bringing in a Hatzalah member, the volunteer ambulance corps, to teach us all about how to deal with health stuff on Shabbos, people who are really living it. And those are our main Hebrew subjects. And then we do Tanya also. And then
you'll have some arts next year too.
Yeah, well, we need to talk about that privately, about how I can buy your curriculum. So
well, I'll share that too. Go ahead.
Yeah, please share that, because I want to know how to. I need to purchase your curriculum. The girls my current girls are very excited about it. And then we have, and then in the afternoons we have lunch, and the girls are involved in menu planning and meal prep every day. And then the afternoons are elective workshops depending on the girls' interests, and horseback riding. And so I'll show you.
Coming for that.
Everyone can see. This is me and my baby sender. So he was another. So he was, you know, another piece of this manifestation. I grew up riding. And then when I became frum, not really for frum reasons, but I was getting married and starting to have kids, I stopped riding. I had my own horse growing up. And then about a year and a half ago, I felt that kind of creative flow coming through. And I was like, I really need to start riding again. I need to reconnect with my body. I want to be in the flow with that animal, and it was a very existential thing. Like, most people go to a horseback riding lesson and be like, oh, that was fun. And I would come home every time in an existential crisis. And my husband is like, why are you doing this? And I'm like, me, everything's an existential crisis with me. Nothing is calm. But I was longing so much to have my own horse again. I was riding my trainer's horses, and, it's a great experience to build my skills. But when you have your own horse, and especially because owning something,
This is a talk on getting your own horse.
Yeah, exactly. Because owning something is very spiritually significant. It creates an energetic bond between you and the thing that you legally own. It's very significant in Jewish law because it's a spiritual reality. Everything in halacha and Jewish law is a spiritual reality. So the bond is very unique, and it's really incredible what you can do. So after a lot of soul searching, finding a horse is a lot like shidduchim, like, matchmaking, essentially. You have to find the right one. You bring some on trial. They might not work out, whatever. But Sender was the very first horse my trainer found for me. And we brought him, and he was like incredible. And we really clicked right away. And when he came to me, his name was Slick. And I was like, no, we can't have that. So he got a nice Yiddish name. His name is Sender now. And also his horses have a barn name, which is what they're like, a nickname, and then a show name, which is like their fancy name. So his barn name was Slick. We changed it to Sender, and his show name was Midlife Crisis. And I was like, no, we can't have that either. So his show name was changed to Redemption Mindset, because he is a manifestation of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So the girls now, we have 2 days a week at the barn, and hoping to get a couple more horses for the program. And it's just an incredible thing.
Amazing. Amazing. So look at what Ani saw, the need out there, like that essay, where's the need?
Yeah.
And she is filling it. And that is an incredible thing. For me with Tzohar, over 12 years ago, I saw that need for my daughters and for young women around me. It wasn't just about me solving the creative process, that needing to happen within Jewish life rather than them needing to leave Jewish life in order. And things have changed in all those years monumentally. So, where there's a need, there's room for creation. And I want to empower all of you out there as well, who are either doing it already, but to find your thing and to do it. And we women can empower each other and support each other. And it's not competitive. We'll do it together. I'll share my art with Ani and bring my students to go ride her horses. And actually for years and years and years, people have been calling me and saying, we need a high school for our girls. So now I have a place to send them, and then you can send girls to us. And then we can do some Tzohar Women as we all grow up. So just to share, the third part we shared in the beginning about our new umbrella name, Tzohar Arts. And that under that is Tzohar Seminary, which has been going for 11 years, Torah Arts, and Tzohar Women. And again, this is, I guess, a program launching Tzohar Women, where we can have formats and classes and all kinds of things. Early on, we put an email on there, tzoharwomen@gmail. There will be a Tzohar Arts website coming up this week. We're leading Torah Campaign for Tzohar Seminary. It's a lot of different words, I know that. But actually, the point I want to make right now is about the other part, which is Torah Arts, which is the third piece, which is something that we developed through, and also something that we can share with you, but we can share with a lot of educators and a lot of schools. It started with something called Parsha Through the Arts, where the Parsha points were taught through an artistic format. And it was developed into a larger program. And that will be the curriculum that we're going to be selling coming up, is going to be Parsha Through the Arts. But the larger Torah Arts is going to be integration into our local Pittsburgh yeshiva, where the arts will be used for Torah education. And also, we're hoping that this, just kind of feeds out into the world, because as Ani's saying, students learn by doing. They're not just walking heads. They're not just walking around supporting a head. It doesn't just come in your head.
Yeah.
And this is with healing too. We hold emotions in our body, but we also learn through our body. Our body is part of it. Our emotions are part of it. Our socialization, our sense of who we are and how we connect to our creator and who we are in the world is just as important as the information that for years and centuries we've just been leaving in their heads and having them spit on a page. Because there's so many ways of going about it and so many more creative ways, and we're moving into that. Ani, is there anything else that we want to talk about before we address all those questions and comments that we'd like to address in the chat? Is there something else that you want to add?
I think I just want to say this is kind of like the tagline for my life, is to understand that Geula or redemption is not something that happens to us, it happens through us. And this is the Rebbe's message to all of us, is when we become a channel of Geula, when we understand that it's us who have to show up in a Geuladic way to co-create this with Hashem. This is the ultimate in creativity. This is the ultimate in opening up. And it's a real raw process. It's not fairy dust. It's going down into that those existential depths and redeeming the power that's been held captive there, essentially, from darkness, from experiences that we've had. It's real work. It's real work. And that's why it's so important to have this circle of women, of sisters, to do it together with, because it's true avoda, it's true work. But that is why our souls are here now. So not only can we do it, but we have to do it. So let's do it together and create the most joy and pleasure as we do it. And that makes any of that deeper, more intense work so much more light and easy.
Yeah, let's do it together. So I guess we'll open up this chat. We have 31 comments in there, or questions. There's something in a Q&A that's separate. I
see that.
Yeah. Should we start with that just because it's own thing?
Yeah.
How can I get more information? It's Ani Lipitz asking that. We don't know who it is. It kind of came up. How can you get more information about energy healing, Ani? Can you answer that?
Well, that depends on what exactly it is you're interested in knowing. If you want to know like a Rav to speak about it with, there's a couple great Rabbanim. If you want to know about the emotion code modality, there's their website, which is discoverhealing.com. You can learn more about the modality. Right now, actually,
number of from practitioners, if you want somebody.
Yeah, there are a number of from practitioners. We're in a network of from practitioners. If you want to get connected with somebody,
you can contact either of us, actually.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so let's open up the chat. Okay, Ani, if you see a question, you can read it first.
Let's see. Somebody asked about social or peer pressure among teenage girls. That's probably not the exact forum to address that, but it is just developmentally a part of human life, the way God, the way God designed the human development process. So yeah, there's definitely a lot to say on that, but probably in the future, maybe we'll do the.
I see one here from Lily. She asks, in your description, Geula sounds more about achieving this aspirational relationship with God and with each other. And we perhaps get to create this relationship. Beautiful.
Yeah. The Rebbe says that Geula is putting the Aleph, which is the total awareness of God, and Aleph in Hebrew and Gematria is one of the oneness of all things, into Gola, which is Gullus, bringing it right into our day-to-day experience, which may feel like an exile, like a Gola, bringing that awareness right in there, and that is the formula for Geula. So yes, exactly, like creating that Geula by bringing this awareness, this aspirational relationship that throughout history was really accessible only to those select few masters who then did everything they could to transmit that consciousness to us through their teachings and their example. But because we've objectively, the Rebbe said, reached the time of the Geula, it's all on the table for each one of us. There is no cap to what we can achieve, the healing, the consciousness. What used to be reserved just for those very few is now for all of us to grow into.
Amen. Ani, can you please explain again how Emunah fits in here?
Yeah, I did. I addressed that question.
Okay, sorry.
Yes, yep. I saw it and I brought it back in.
Okay, somebody's wowed about Heichal Devorah. How do you address social peer? You did that.
Yeah.
I heard that horse in Hebrew is sus, and it's connected with sason, as in simcha. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of Hasidus that are on horses. It's on horses. Listen to me, on horses. It's really cool. Yeah.
Guys, please put in more questions or comments because we only got 2 left here. Our super creative son at the age of 12 was acting out in school, and the smart guidance counselor suggested horse riding therapy. It was an amazing thing for him.
Yeah. Thank God.
Yeah. Awesome. Maybe could add a freedom dance piece for the girls.
Ooh,
Beautiful.
that would be amazing.
Any other questions on this or comments? We'll take off on your comments here. Please type in more.
Is there something similar for boys? I know there's the JETS program in Los Angeles, I think,
Yeah.
that is similar-ish. The
And
school,
Wilkes-Barre, but you know,
yeah,
they're
and
the
Wilkes-Barre and Waterbury also, yeah. Where's
Miriam
the
Leah
school?
wants to know where the school is.
It's in Pomona, New York. We have 5 spots left for the fall. We do not have a dorm, so any out-of-town girls would need to find boarding.
How does a person know it's going to the Q&A. How does a
Okay.
person know which need they see in the world they're here to fill? If they see many needs, that's a good question.
So that piece really comes from developing our intuition, from coming into ourselves, because there are many needs and we may at different points meet them in different ways.
Right.
But it really comes into really learning how to tune into that voice of your soul, and that's a deep avoda, and that's where, you know, clearing out all of these other voices and confusion can come in, and also then relying on Hashem as your co-creator, the Hashgacha Pratis, the divine providence of the opportunities that are being brought to you and where you're having success as you try to fill needs.
Yeah, it also is need-based, you know, if it's
Yeah.
growing as a mom and your kid needs something desperately, you're going to put on hold something for a little while, but then you'll have a need. And it becomes that, oh no, aha, ta-da process between 2 different things that you're working on, and they work on different levels. And we're always working on different things at once. Maybe not
Right.
2 creative projects, but 2 different things in our lives.
Right.
And then we have, so where do we start? I'm not sure what that's referring to. Maybe that anonymous attendee wants to write what she means. Okay, we'll move on. How do we find out more about the school, Ani?
You can
Unless it's in Tzohar,
message me.
because you'll
Yeah.
see the stuff on here.
Yeah. You could contact me privately, and we can talk. We don't have any websites or anything yet. But yeah, you can contact me privately.
And if you know me, I can get you in touch. Nechama
Yeah.
Hordner, how do you learn to trust what is coming down from your antennae?
That's very much the avoda that all of us have been doing throughout history. Is, you know, sometimes we're scared by the Geula vision that's coming through to us. And what I always tell women who I'm working with, learning to tune in, you know, to that voice, is if it's not an Avera, it's not an Avera. If it's not a sin, it's not a sin. So if you want to take a risk trying something new, or trying to figure out, was this the voice of my soul or a voice of a should or somebody else's voice in me, try it out and see what the outcome is, see what you learn from it, see how you feel afterwards, see what's accomplished. You know, again, see what you learn from it. If it's not an Avera, it's not an Avera. If it's not a sin, it's not a sin. We can't be afraid to mess up or make a wrong choice, because in the end, even a wrong choice is not a wrong choice, because we learned something. We fulfilled something that was in potential. We answered a question that we had when we made that choice. And even if it's not pleasant, doesn't make it in the end, you know, the wrong choice.
It's also like a question of support sometimes.
Yeah.
You know, talking with a support system or a mashpia,
100%.
or with a
Yeah.
bunch of friends, you know,
Yep.
talking
Or
it through, and of course with your
Your
spouse.
coach, your healer. Yeah.
All of the above, you
Yeah.
know. And then as you move forward, you learn to trust yourself more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Working
Well,
through.
because the point of that support system is that the supports in your life should be able to help you tune into your inner guidance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you talk more about Pitzel Hanefesh and integrating healing past life trauma? Oh, that could start
yeah.
a whole thing.
Yeah. Pizel HaNefesh is literally the scattering of the soul. Yeah. Pizel HaNefesh, it literally means the scattering of the psyche. And many of us, especially those of us who are dissociated or have been dissociated, know the feeling of feeling like I'm not really here. I'm going through the motions. my body's functioning, my life is functioning, but like, where am I? And so in modern terms, in contemporary psychological terms, the experience of Pizul HaNefesh, I think, is very much dissociation, essentially being outside of my experience.
Mm.
And or as we heal, we find these pieces of my psyche, like this 5-year-old self and this 8-year-old self and this 15-year-old self that got stuck there because there was some intense energy that was unresolved. And all of reality is energy. This is what Chassidus says. All of reality is energy, different frequencies, denser energies we call klipa, sitra, achra, and the higher frequencies as we go up and up, it's elokus. It's all these different levels of or.
Whenever I start an emotion code session, I say it's energy work, and I say, what is energy? And I say it's Hashem and everything. There is Enod Milvado, like it's Hashem, and it's about giving it over to Hashem, really, essentially. I mean, learning to learn. So where do we start with the Geula process?
Right. So first of all, learning the teachings, the Rebbe's teachings, which are so multidimensional and multifaceted about Geula. It's called the Devar Malchus. And there are now a lot of people teaching it from a very Geula perspective. For a long time, it was taught from a very Gaulis perspective, meaning people were still laboring under the impression that.
Oh, you just froze there, Ani.
That we're waiting for something to happen to us. Oh, I see that Amy looks like she froze, so probably.
Oh, and you saw
you there? I just froze?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I saw you freeze, so I knew that I must have frozen. So people, it was taught and learned for a long time under the assumption that this is something that we're passively waiting for in a future state. But there was a big revival about 4 or 5 years ago of people learning it and being like, wait a second, no, the Rebbe said that the Geula is here now. So we need to start relating to this in the present tense. And that makes it way more intense because all of a sudden I don't just get to continue on my unconscious programming track. I've got to do some serious shifting of my psyche and sense of self and reality. So there are a lot of people now teaching and extracting the consciousness shifting tools that have always been encoded within Chassidus and the Devar Malchus. My website has a lot of that, geulavision.com. And then also on a practical level, I always talk about developing your personal Geula vision. What is your biggest, best vision for your life? And that can be really overwhelming and scary and hard and painful because where you are now might feel so far from that. And then just bring it to someone who can help you and say, how do I get started on this track? Bring it to Hashem and say, how do I get started?
Well, this relates to that. And I'd like to answer a little bit here. What is it? And then you answer, what does it feel like when we've got it right, related to what we're meant to do? Will it always be deeply joyful and fulfilling? I know for me, when I started Tzohar, it was hard as heck. Yeah. So like there's a lot of putting down, pieces that need to be in place. At this point, it's not my job to worry about what the girls are eating or where they're sleeping or certain things. It's moved into the pieces, and it's also a stage of my life. Like that was 11 years ago, now it's evolved to what's right in my life now. And it does feel deeply joyful and in sync, ultimately, but it's not meant to say that there's not avoda to get there.
Right.
But yes, it has to feel right. And what would you like to add to that?
It's a deeper sense of alignment than just emotional gratification. Obviously you do end up having positive emotional experiences, but like Amy said, like there's times that it's so hard. But there's a higher and deeper, there's still a higher and deeper sense of this is what I'm meant to be doing, like from my essence, even though right now it may be unpleasant, it may be hard. And like, even just, in a small way, even like with my horse, like we have days where we're totally off. We have a bad ride. I fall off, whatever it is. That's not pleasant on an emotional level, but I still know like now this, like overall, this is like, piece of what I'm meant to be doing and showing up in the world.
And there are times I've been so overwhelmed, and that was more over the years, how things grew and how would we do? And I needed emotion code back then big time, but I didn't get it. I was too busy working. And there wasn't enough time and capability to receive, but I was so overwhelmed by it. I just said, I just have to stop. And I thank God every day for my husband, who kept it going by holding me up and holding it up, because he knew that it was my sense of purpose, or part of our sense of purpose, that it should keep going. And sometimes somebody close to you needs to remind you of that.
Yep.
And then it evolves to something else. It's not just you, but something of the world. So so that's great. There's some more questions there, Ani, about Heichal Devorah. So maybe we can type in how they can reach you and what it's about, unless you want to answer it quickly. The best way to get in touch with you.
So I'll just say quickly, will there be school play or other creative outlets? School play will probably come eventually, probably not first year. That will be way too intense for me, but tons of creative outlets. We're going to have workshops and free art time and lots of classes and stuff like that. Incorporate executive function skills. This is probably for both of us. Emotional regulation and executive function is what we are all based on. The whole program is designed to help the girls in their neurological development to get to know themselves, life skills, regulation tools. Everything is about the laboratory of life. And one of the most important things we need as women is be able to understand and also manage and work with our vast, unbelievable hearts.
And when you're utilizing the arts, it's really to go from Tzar to Tzohar. It's really to take the narrowness of what we think learning is. And it's not so much important what the product is. I mean, if it helps the child or the woman or the person express themselves and get their thought and their feeling out there and share it, that's a huge level. But also people learn through the creative process. They're learning in new ways. They're using their senses. They're learning to be present. To learn to be present is humongous. We're usually planning ahead or mourning the past, and that gives us anxiety. Talk about anxiety and young women. I mean, that's out of the box, and really for everybody since COVID, I have to say, excuse me, but learning to be present, to breathe through it, to allow Hashem in. That is what, I mean, I even needed it tonight to do some emotion code on myself, like to be present. I teach it in improv. How do you be present in the moment so that you're able to give and receive and to have the flow of energy between you and to let it evolve? Which is a bit what we're doing tonight. We're doing a little bit of
100%. And that's what,
and with you too.
And that's what writing really is also, is you can't be writing from your head. You have to be writing with your body. You have to be in tune with the horse's energy. And, there's a saying like, ride the horse you have today. You could be riding the same horse, but they're having a different day. You're having a different day. It's always about the combination of energies and being able to just be present in your body with the moment.
Yes, and here we have planning is a huge part of the artistic process. So yes, and another tool that I teach my girls, yes, and it's not no, but we don't have to cancel one out. Like women don't, where it's yes, and through that process, yes. And it's actually a Kabbalistic term that I was taught. It's an everyday word in Israel. It's called chashmal, and you get it on your electricity bill. It means electricity. And what I was taught is that there's a chash in life. There's a time for chash and there's time for mal. Mal is your exertion, your planning, you're putting the ink on the page, you're taking out your paints, your whatever it is, your planning of your idea. And then there's a receiving, and that's part of the oh no, aha, tada process too. There's a receiving, there's a quiet time, a chash, which is why we say creativity is spirituality. You're really at one with Hashem. You're putting yourself out there as a vessel of Hashem in whatever you do. It doesn't have to be artistic. Again, growth process, putting yourself out there, manifesting things in the universe, creating in the world. And again, we're not doing it from nothing. And we're also getting the chash. We have to quiet ourselves and listen. What is my next step? I may have planned to do this film, but oh no, this idea needs to be a painting. And we see our girls switch their formats, and we do that as well. Planning to, whatever, but then there's a receiving, and and the chashmal is kind of like a choo-choo train. It makes the energy, it makes the electricity of moving forward, the quiet and the exertion, the quiet and the exertion. Part of life, part of creativity.
Yep.
Anything else here? You seeing anything else, Ani?
Let's see.
Can you recommend any good Dvar Malchus teachers?
One of my favorite is Saratova Best. I'm gonna put in the chat. Her website is Or Panimi. She is so funny and she's so brilliant. So I recommend her classes a lot, and a lot of my classes, I don't give like directly over, I don't give like directly over from the text, but I'm always bringing the concepts from the Dvar Malchus and applying.
I see one more comment there. What is emotion code? We described that earlier, so you can go back and listen. And the fundamentals of improv is really based on yes and. So that's, and being present. And so those are the useful ones for now. Oh, she can't believe she's still teaching. She taught us.
Oh yeah. Oh, she's incredible. She's incredible.
So
yeah.
Is there something?
I see one more. Can emotion code help you figure out what your purpose is?
Yes.
So yes, because when we get unblocked, it opens you up to feeling into that much more. It can help you get all the other noise and the voices out to tune into the voice of your soul. And also we have to understand that your purpose isn't one thing with a capital P. It's going to change and evolve. And a piece of your purpose is manifesting in every moment of your life. When my kids are home from school and I'm with my kids, that is my purpose with a capital P at that moment. When I'm with my students and I'm just talking with them and hanging out with them, or I'm teaching them, that's my purpose with a capital P. Right now here with all of you and with Amy, this is my purpose with a capital P. Hanging out with my husband, riding my horse, wherever you are, there is a piece of your purpose unfolding there. But if you're feeling like something's missing and you're being called to create or receive something new, then emotion code could unblock you to the next phase, receiving the next phase.
Also, the P of purpose. Every scenario you described is being present, also a P.
Yeah.
And in order to be fully present, emotion code can help you a lot.
Yes.
A lot. To be fully present in your life, and to also there's the heart wall, opening up the heart and receiving more joy in your life.
Yep.
So that is so I guess we're coming to a close now. I'm gonna kind of recap that this is Tzohar Women's project, which is it's an extension of Tzohar Seminary along with Torah Arts, and it goes under the umbrella Tzohar Arts. There will be a website. Crystal, if you're able to, put, the email up again, you can email me directly at tzoharwomen@gmail.com if you want to know more or talk more about the women's project that we're opening up. And I also welcome other creative groups that we can join together. It doesn't have to be, I have to start a new thing on my own, but it can be, kind of a place for connection. And also to again say that we're celebrating 10 plus years of Tzohar Seminary. Again, the cooler way of saying 11 years of Tzohar Seminary. We have been putting out every day a ton of content, and it breaks my heart that social media does not live up to anything. We've been putting out some beautiful content about Tzohar, about what they learn there, with some great artists and Hasidus teachers and the students themselves making films, and Crystal, who's on here making films. And I invite you to follow Tzohar Seminary either on Facebook or on Instagram, but more directly, you can go to YouTube if you don't want to do that at all. You can go to YouTube and search Tzohar Seminary, and you will see in purple all the films that we put out for this campaign. The campaign for Tzohar Seminary is coming up on May 23rd and 24th. And can Tzohar monetize its YouTube? I don't know. We'll address that another time. You're welcome. Thank you to Miriam there for thanking us. And thank you all for joining us. Crystal, if you could put up the link for the campaign so people can see it. but it'll be around our stuff. I really want you to see our videos. That's most important to me. Go to YouTube under Tzohar Seminary. Ani, I want to thank you. I'm so appreciative for you in my life, that you helped me open up through Emotion Code personally.
It's mutual. It's
Do the
mutual.
work itself, which has been really finding a purpose for me in another way, you know, after Tzohar or along with Tzohar, a real sense of purpose. And I love doing this work. May we keep uniting as women. May we keep coming together as women to encourage each other, to support each other, to create, to bring ourselves into personal geula, to our most geuladic selves, and to bring the world into that circle where it's not hierarchy, where this sense of everybody is meant to belong and be, you know, just as close to Hashem as each other, and living in their own purpose, their own, you know, made out piece of the puzzle, where we're all unique. And may education go that way, where students are, you know, addressed in a personal way, in an individual way, and where they're not only permitted, but encouraged to become the individuals that they are and that their souls were meant to be. And may we all be relieved of that anxiety and coming into this next world. It's a geuladic world. You know, we know it's changing. We all feel it.
Yep. And we're creating it. So
we are creating it, and we're creating ourselves. So please feel free to reach out to us. You can find me. My name is Amy Guterson. You can look me under Tzohar Seminary. You can find Ani under what? Ani, how will they find
Facebook, Hana Ani Lipitz on Facebook. I have a lot of content there, or Geula Vision, YouTube, the website. Yeah.
Okay, and you can find me under Amy Guterson. You can message me, or you can email me at Tzohar Women at Gmail. But thank you all for joining. Please see the campaign. Most importantly, see the videos, because they're amazing. And yes, go team. Nechama, thank you for being a part of it. Crystal, thank you for being a part of it. Love to all of you, beautiful women. We're going to do more together, and I want to hear your suggestions and hear more from all of you. Thank you, everybody. Good night,
Good night, everybody. Geuladic night.
Geuladic life.
Exactly. Amen.
Amen.